So we've got Rochester right behind us here, and there's a mass amount of geese in this town. There's a lot of history here, lots of water, lots of open water still, even though we've had a very cold fall. And we're set up in this picked cornfield. We've got these beautiful pit blinds. We're able to get out of the weather.
Well, we're right on the edge of a major snowstorm according to all the weather channels. Hopefully that's going to make the geese really feed today in front of this front, and should be a good shoot.
Nicely done. Good job, guys. Oh, another pair.
Rooster! Boy, we got a tail on that rooster.
Passion for the Hunt is brought to you by Shields, Crestliner Boats, Travel Manitoba, Federal Premium Ammunition, North Dakota Tourism, Primo's Hunting.
We got some geese up. Oh, how far? Actually, they're getting pretty close. They're fighting the wind coming right at us. You know, Rochester, Minnesota is really the epicenter for where these giant geese really had an amazing comeback story. And it's got all these ingredients that make it a great place for waterfowl, but specifically these geese. It's got the running water, plenty of lakes, and a lot of food surrounding the Rochester area. Come on, geese.
Rester coming in behind them.
Go.
Got a flock to come in and do it. That was awesome. Good shooting, guys.
Well, that was kind of nice. They definitely committed.
Yeah.
Came right in.
Got a single down. Had a couple kind of veered off. Didn't quite commit.
That felt good.
Did get a single in. More coming. You know, we're sitting in the pit blinds and you've got these little cracks that you can kind of peer out of, and pretty much the entire time we're watching geese, whether they're within a half a mile or they're a few miles away. And typically they were on a path to another field, but every once in a while these guides would just hit these calls and be able to pull a couple geese in, and up we popped and had some fun. Get your gun, Dad. Woo! Another quick volley. Had a lot of birds. Ended up only getting 2.
When you've logged hours building trust in your gear, you've really built trust in the most important tool in your arsenal, yourself. Are you ready?
Goose hunting here in Rochester is still a big destination for great big giant Canadas. We get a lot of birds from that Lake Winnipeg flyway coming right down through here, and a lot of them stage up for quite a long time here in Rochester. Finding a field where you're going to be on the feed is probably going to be a difficult thing to do. Best thing I can tell you for hunting around town here is get out, get some miles on, do some scouting, get under them. Finding an area that you're going to get into where the birds are going to be, like I said, is going to be tough. But if you can get yourself under them with a good number of decoys and a couple talented callers, you can get some birds down and get your limits and get in and out. As far as getting some numbers out there, you can do it in a fairly inexpensive manner with sleeper shells. Silhouette decoys are making a real big resurgence the last couple of years. It's a really good way to get a couple hundred more decoys out there without breaking the bank and having to buy a whole other trailer just to get your spread out there.
You got a pair coming in hard.
Yeah, coming from the left there, Chris. Almost right out in front of you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, another pair. It's kind of fun when you get these smaller groups to come in. Oh, right in front of you, Dad. Right out front. Get your gun. It's right here. It's gonna land on your face. Nicely done. Good job, guys. I was just out of my shooting lane, so the guys at the end cleaned it up.
As far as decoy spreads, we use very large spreads. You know, in the early season, we obviously use smaller, but as we get migrating birds down here, very important to use large spreads, especially if we think there's going to be a migration day. Then we put out max loads of 500, 600 decoys. On a normal day, it's probably around 300. We use a lot of full body decoy type, and there's a reason for everything that we use. But efficiency wise, some of these silhouette decoys, go ahead and get some of them. They're very effective, a lot less expensive. But it's very important, with goose hunting around here is to have enough decoys out to be able to fool these geese.
That was fun. Those came from the opposite direction and circled right in. Yeah, good shooting. Fun morning. We got more coming. I mean, this is just crazy how many birds just keep filtering out into these fields. There's a lot of birds around.
As far as the way we set the decoys, typically if we have a strong wind one way or another, we're going to put the majority of decoys upwind. And then we leave some pockets in there, and it just depends the way the pits lay and the way the birds are going to come in. So a lot of times we'll let the first flock come in and then adjust accordingly, of course, to put ourselves in better position. We do tight family groups. Cold temperatures in Minnesota can be 0 degrees. Then a lot of times we'll go with sleeper shells and stuff like that, because these geese they're going to come out to a field and they're going to sit on their belly. And so we use a lot of sleeper shells as the temperatures dip down, and very effective way to get geese.
Right above us. Yeah. Oh man, is that pretty. Good night. Come on. All right. That was fun. Big ol' Rochester goose right there. Nice shooting. Woo.
North Dakota's hunting and fishing is some of the best in the nation. The birds are flying, the fish are biting, tails are wagging, and you're smiling just thinking about it. Plan your visit at NorthDakotaLegendary.com.
I think historically we had breeding Canada geese around. No way to really estimate their pre-settlement numbers, but they certainly were common. And we didn't really start like some of the monitoring programs until maybe the last 50 years or so. We have different surveys, both harvest, breeding population surveys. The Canada goose was not a common bird historically until even through the 50s and 60s. Like shooting a Canada goose often made the local newspapers. Until probably the 1980s, we started some restoration efforts, and kind of from that point forward, they've gone from being not that abundant or rare to, you know, in some cases a nuisance now. They do cause some crop damage. Populations in Minnesota are very high now, sort of the good old days, I think, compared to at least historically.
So I can't exactly remember what year it was that they refound the giant Canada goose here in Rochester, Minnesota. The story that Charles Mayo got some geese from a person in Iowa. He clipped the wings. They're around his pond, and geese started coming through, and it started attracting more and more geese, and this has become a real haven down here for giant Canada geese. You know, as far as the river system stays open the whole year, so we keep a good amount the whole season.
Harold Hansen found birds down at Silver Lake in Rochester and documented them as being giants. And they thought they were from the Inner Lakes region up in Manitoba, where they were nesting. I think historically we had breeding Canada geese around. No way to really estimate their pre-settlement numbers, but they certainly were common. We just don't know, at least locally, why they weren't that abundant. It was probably more harvest related than anything. The way we manage geese for the seasons, historically it's been at the level of the flyway. So for Minnesota, we're in the Mississippi Flyway, which includes 14 states. With geese, historically we manage by population, and the migrant geese in Minnesota, we had 3 populations called the Eastern Prairie population, the Mississippi Valley population, and the Southern James Bay population. All 3 of those populations nest on the west and south side of Hudson Bay and migrate south. So for the Eastern Prairie population, or EPP geese, they're on the far west side of Hudson Bay by Churchill. Those birds would migrate down into Manitoba, into Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri. So the states and the management at the flyway level, those states and provinces manage those EPP geese. So Missouri, Iowa, and Minnesota often had limits on geese that were driven by that population up by Churchill, and we would monitor that population, but we didn't have any, or very, very few, nesting giant Canada geese in the states at that time. As the giants started to increase, we kind of flip-flopped our management, and we started over a couple decades letting the giant population dictate what harvest regulations are. Today, we have 107-day Canada goose seasons, which is the maximum number of days allowed under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Our limits in Minnesota, we have a 5-bird limit early in the season in September. It's 3 a day the rest of the year. We have used some other special tools here with bag limits of 10 in September. We've had an August season for a couple of years. It's a kind of a whole shift in management from what we're used to be letting those migrant geese determine harvest limits and things. And now, because of the increase in giants, that's what drives our harvest.
If you're looking for something that you can range anything with in any situation, look no further than the Bushnell LRF. You got high-end glass optics with multi-coated lenses, and the light transmission is, bar none, the best in the business.
The night going into the second day, we had a massive front come through. The wind was blowing, it dropped a bunch of snow, which from a goose hunter's standpoint, that's what you want. We figure there's gonna be some migrators coming through, and today should be a great day to be out in the field.
After that first day, the guides realized that these geese were coming out more to the south of us. In the morning, they were going to decide where to set up or where they wanted us to go. We ended up going to a second field. This goose season has gone on now for probably a couple months, and if they don't get any incoming new birds, a lot of times it's hard to get these same geese to come into these same spreads day after day. So they were hoping that with that big front that came through, we were going to see some migratory birds. I mean, the snow just stopped probably a half hour ago, and right now there's geese in the sky, and they're going every direction right now. This is going to be fun, I think. We've already had the first volley and dropped a few, so can't wait for the next one.
Getting back down. Well, we just had quite a few geese circle over and not commit to the decoys, and then all of a sudden there was a couple trickling in, bigger group came in behind them. Guides hit the buzzer and we jumped up and let them have it. It was jumped up and was very surprised at how many geese were right in front of us, and the line of shooters here did pretty well. Well, fast and furious. We had this snowstorm last night, and it's now blowing pretty good, probably 25, 30 miles an hour. And we're expecting to see a lot of birds, which there are a ton of birds in the sky right now. And they're definitely coming in. They got to feed heavy today. They've got this weather. So far, so good.
Having some versatility in your calling ability is a real big key this time of year. You're going to have real big birds mixed in with some small birds. Having a couple different call selections on the lanyard is going to be huge. Having some calls you can go real high, fast, and loud with, and some calls you can get a little deeper. I've got a handful from Molt Gear here. Scott Trinan, world champion caller, builds his calls right here in Rochester, as well as Mike Stelzner's got a phenomenal lineup of calls from CNS up top here. Being here in Rochester, the home of the resurgence of the Giants, has spawned some very, very talented callers and call makers, and we're proud to carry both of those right here at Shields.
The short reed goose call has been around for quite a while. Guys back in the day used to always use the big long Canada flutes. For the most part, it's just a cluck and a moan. With the short reed, you can do a wide variety of different calls on them. You can cluck, moan, you can double cluck, you can actually do, you know, different pitches and different sounds on them. So you can sound like early season big honkers or late season cacklers on the same call. The short reed just has a bunch of different versions that you can use and blow. So it's a lot easier once you get the hang of it to blow a short reed and make a bunch of different sounds where you're actually switching up each sound as you're hunting instead of just making the one constant noise over and over, and geese get accustomed to that, and now you can change your pitch, change your tone, and make a bunch of different sounds throughout the hunt. So basically this is kind of how I start my progression when the geese are way off or they're kind of skirting to the side of the spread or anything like that. Basically, you're just trying to get those geese's attention to your decoy spread when they're way out there. Actually, when you're popping that flag and calling at the same time, you can catch those geese's eye and they'll actually start turning. Basically, when they're already turned, locked on you, is when you want to kind of slow things down. If they're barely pumping their wings, they're already set locked, or they're just getting to the edge of the decoys, and then you just kind of slow things down to clucks and moans. And then I like, you know, when they completely set up, the feet almost kick out, then you can just walk them on in with a just slow murmur. You don't even need to cluck, just. And that kind of is how I like to finish them off, if you even need to blow your call at all. Once they're locked, they're pretty much committed at that point.
So the field on day 2 was in closer proximity to the city of Rochester. And Rochester has these no-hunt zones around it, and we were pretty close to the edge of it, and you know, houses surrounding us, but man, the geese really wanted to be in that field. With the weather the way it was, there were migrators coming through, they'd see this massive spread, and we were able to pull a lot of geese that day and get them within shooting range. Way to go, guys. Team effort. Singles, doubles, you take them. 4 of them out front. These guys are gonna do it. Get ready. Right out front. Right out front, get ready. Looks like they're doing a flyby. Wow, what a great way to end the hunt here in Rochester, and the amount of birds here is just unbelievable. I mean, they're filtering back into the town here right now, and it's been just non-stop where they're heading out of town into the fields during the day, and I mean, pretty fun shoot.
I just can't believe the amount of geese that are heading right back into town now. I mean, shooting time's over and they're still piling out of these fields and heading back to water.
Wow is right. We've seen a few big flocks of migrators today, so there's even more birds coming into this area, and I know these guys are in for some more great shoots here before the season closes in a week or so.
Yeah, they're going to have some fun in the next week or two. I wish we could stay.
Passion for the Hunt was brought to you by Shields, Crestliner Boats, Travel Manitoba, Federal Premium Ammunition, North Dakota Tourism, Primo's Hunting,